Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the last day of Social Media Week. I hope everyone has had a wonderful week so far and have learned a great deal about social media. It is my pleasure to be sitting here today next to the one and only Martha Stewart.
Thank you.
Patrick Janelle, influencer and founder of Spring Street Society. And Courtney Spritzer, co-founder and co-CEO of Socialfly. As a brief introduction, my name is Stephanie, and I am also the co-founder and co-CEO of Socialfly. We are a social media marketing and influencer agency located right here in New York City, and we are so excited to have a discussion today about influencer marketing. As many of you know, and those who have been attending the sessions all week, influencer marketing has truly taken off over the past few years, and we really want to have a discussion today about the inner workings of influencer marketing. So before I jump into all of the detailed questions, I want to hear from each of you today. What is your favorite social media platform for personal use and for business? And Martha, I'll start with you.
Well, I've tried them all, and have been involved in each and every one of them. Twitter was my first favorite, and from day one, I loved the idea of Twitter, just to take almost instantaneous surveys, and I would do it with our partners and show them how many responses you can get in a few seconds, and it was kind of fun. My favorite one was when I asked how many times a week you change your, or how many times a week you change, or how often do you change your bed? That's what it was. How often do you change your bed? And the results were so horrifying that I hid them. I hid them for a while.
What should it be? What should the answer be?
Oh, it should? Oh, well, you know, you should if you could every day, but you can't. So once a week's okay. It's acceptable. But you know what the answer was?
What?
Oh, once a month.
Oh boy.
It's disgusting. But now it's definitely right now. I still like Twitter, but I Instagram more frequently. And I think the photographs, the visuals are very, very well liked by a large number of people, and it's a very nice way to share information.
Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I never really caught on too much to the Twitter phase. My background is graphic design, and so I've always been a visual person by nature. So when when Instagram first launched, I wasn't an early adapter necessarily, or early adopter. I sort of waited for my friends to kind of find their way onto the platform, and it was when a friend of mine from Los Angeles, from like one phase of my life, and a friend of mine from my Christian college in Florida, which is a whole other story, another phase of my life. The two of them somehow, when one of them posted a photo of me, and they were both like, I know that person, I was like, what is this thing? How do you two know each other? And I had to like jump onto the platform. But then it was the fact that it was a visual platform in which I could express myself and like what I was seeing in my mind via this app. And it was less about the words for me that really captured my attention. And Instagram has remained definitely my favorite platform.
I can see why.
And then for me, and like both of you, I've had different favorites over time. So when I was in college, Facebook was only available to college students. And that's really when my love obsession with social media began. I found myself after class spending hours and hours of my time on Facebook, friending people, making connections, building relationships on there. And then flash forward to today, I still spend a lot of time on Facebook, but most of my time now is spent on Instagram. I follow a ton of brands, really because I own a social media agency and we need to know what other brands are doing. But I also follow many, many influencers, and I find myself making a lot of purchase decisions, especially when I'm going into the store or shopping online based on what I'm seeing my favorite influencers wear. And then we're also in hiring mode right now, so I'm finding that I'm spending a lot of time on LinkedIn lately, and I love LinkedIn. So if anyone in the audience is running a B2B business, LinkedIn is a really great tool.
Perfect. And Martha and Patrick, you have both built your brands around your personalities and your specific tastes. As your brands have grown and your influence has increased, how much of your authentic self do you put on social media?
Well, in my company, well, see, I'm also a company. So Martha, the person, and Martha, the company, are the same thing. So, I, from day one, when Facebook first became a very immediately important thing to use, I gave that to the company. But they use my photographs, and they create the content, and whoever they are. Right now, we're working very closely with Meredith Corporation and Meredith's social media department, and the digital department. They are actually running the Facebook. But everything else, pretty much, I keep my fingers on. Instagram is I have my own Instagram in addition to the Martha Stewart Instagram. So it's worked out very well. It's worked out very, very well. And I check on it all on a daily basis just to make sure nothing's going askew or astray. It has to be the brand. It has to give a good depiction of the brand and what we stand for. And it's done. I think it's worked very, very well.
And how much time do you spend on your personal Instagram account every day?
Well, Twitter, I absolutely, I limited myself from day one to less than 5 minutes. Instagram is less than 10 minutes. I take all the pictures, so it's a lot of, I take thousands of pictures, but I also have a daily blog, which to me is even the most important thing I do on social media, because that blog, the Martha blog it's called, is really, it's almost the most fabulous magazine article, because it's like, I took a trip the other day. I was down at QVC, and I had 2 hours. I zoomed over to Chanticleer Gardens, and we did an entire photo essay on Chanticleer Gardens, and very detailed. We have all the species names of all the plants and trees, and people learn a lot from it. So I love doing that, because not only do they learn, I learn every day. So it's just I think it's an important thing not to spend your whole day at it. And I do not sit in my car and only look at Instagram all day long, like many of my colleagues.
Scrolling.
And oh my gosh. And William Meroff, is he in the audience? William's a college friend of mine. He's a college student. And he is #1, always right there. I mean, whatever I post, he's right there, right there. First one.
30 seconds and you got the like.
Oh my God, he must have a machine. I think he has a machine. And he follows everybody I follow also. And he follows everybody Kevin Sharkey follows. And so I don't know how they do it. And Chris Spitzmiller, is he in the audience? He does that too. I don't know.
It's working. You know their names.
And the Fascinator. Oh no, they're friends. They're
okay.
friends. But they follow everybody else too, which is really weird. Don't you have some people like that on yours?
They're definitely, yeah. I mean, it's interesting how you can forge I'm forging a relationship with people that I don't know, who are also sort of there at the beginning of every post, liking and commenting and engaging with me.
Yeah.
And even if I haven't actually followed them back, I'm still having
I
conversations
mean, I
with
had
them
dinner
daily.
with Christopher Spitzmiller last night because he's been so active.
That's so great.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, it was fun. But but it is a weird world.
Yeah.
And I do worry. I mean, we'll get into that later, I'm sure, about how I worry about where the eyeballs really are.
Yeah.
And where your brain really is.
We'll definitely get into that.
Okay.
Patrick, how about
Well,
you?
I think it's so interesting also that you're talking about your personal blog, and you're talking about the way that you're diversifying how you're talking
To whom?
to your audience and
Right.
to various audiences, and the things that you can talk about on those different platforms.
Yes.
Because you don't necessarily have the space in Instagram to kind of really take a deeper dive into some of the specifics of what you're thinking and what you're talking about. And
I also
posting
can't do
and
anything political.
Right.
Because, you know, I have a magazine, Martha Stewart Living, and 50% are probably Republicans and 50% are probably Democrats, and who knows how many are Trumpites. And you can't get political because you don't want to lose your followers, and they're very, very testy, you know?
Yes.
So you have to be very careful.
Well, and I think that's sort of the nature of Instagram too, right? Like I definitely have, the way that I've sort of set up my presence on Instagram is people follow me for advice about places to eat in various cities that they're visiting, places to stay, a lot of like travel tips, certainly a lot of fashion. But it's not really a place for me to be critically negative about things. In that, I just sort of like omit posting about it. Instagram is less of a place, just sort of the way that it's developed because of the way that followers work, because of the types of content that you're hoping to see, because it's less of a conversation than maybe you're getting a lot on Facebook or something like that.
I think it's a very good point about not being critical, because it's not the place to be critical.
Right.
We're not columnists. We're not the newscasters. We're putting up what we like.
And it's definitely this moment of sort of aspiration. And you know, the question was, how much of your authentic selves are you able to show? You know, obviously I'm not showing everything in my life on Instagram, or like every dirty dish on Instagram, but part of the reason is because we are showing the things that we like and the things that we aspire to. And while I've always felt that I try my hardest to create really beautiful images on Instagram, it's not because I'm trying to hide something. It's because I also am aspiring to these moments in my own life. And so I'm showing the sort of like, I'm celebrating the best moments in my life. And it's not about trying to hide anything that's not authentic. It's about celebrating the things that are the best parts of me. And that's, I think, specific to Instagram. Whereas I'm actually in the process of starting my own kind of like website and blog where I can take a deeper dive into the travels that I've had or my favorite restaurants and really talk about the connection that I have with the chef, or how I first discovered a place. And I'm excited for that because I don't often have the opportunity to have that level of conversation just on Instagram.
And I saw yesterday you have an email sign up in your
I
Instagram
do,
bio.
yes. It's all it's all part of sort of like the unfolding of the next couple of things that I'm planning. So.
And I just want to add to that, because we typically see on Instagram, your feed is, like you were both saying, the highlight reel of your life, the most beautiful aspects of how you're living day to day, and it's very, very curated. But what I love about how Instagram has evolved over the last year is now we have Instagram stories, and now on your Instagram stories, it doesn't have to be so perfect. It can be those in-the-moment shots that are a little bit more authentic, and you can be a little critical when necessary.
Because ultimately, and I think that's a good point, like it's not necessarily that you're not going to be super authentic on the Instagram post, but that's just not the right medium for it. Whereas stories are such a great medium. Like you really want to be casual. You want to be like on the go and on the fly. I just got back from Vietnam yesterday, and I was between not having service and Wi-Fi, and also trying to just like enjoy myself and not constantly be on my phone. I was able to post on Instagram, but I didn't do a lot of storying because that was going to take up sort of too much of my time. So I'm sort of like a little bit behind, and I'm still debating whether or not I'm gonna post that video of me dancing on the bar at the nightclub in Hanoi.
I think you have to.
Okay,
Yeah, you have to post that now. What do you guys think? Should we post the video?
Definitely.
Yes, there you go. And a question for you, Patrick. You work with a lot of brands. Do brands ever reach out to you who maybe you feel they're not the right fit, so you have to say, no, I don't want to work with you? It's not
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that happens all the time. For me, I'm in a very fortunate position, and I'm so thankful that I'm in a place where I've built up an audience, and therefore that something that comes along with that is a revenue stream. So I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity both to work with partners that I'm super excited about, but I also have the capacity to say no. But even from the beginning, that's always been a very important thing to me, because ultimately what I am showing, and the thing that I think that I feel very strongly about in terms of my presence on Instagram, is I am showing the things that I do have an opinion, and I do feel strongly about promoting the values of like a beautiful life, or a thoughtful moment, or being together with the ones that you love. Those are the things that I hold very dear and that I am excited to express. So on the same page, it's important to me that I'm also using the same values with which I'm promoting my personal moments to promote any brand or any partner that I truly believe in. Yeah, I mean, there are certainly a number of things that factor into whether or not I'm going to work with a partner. But ultimately, if there's a brand or a product or a service that I just am not interested in or wouldn't use or wouldn't have a part of my life, then I'm not going to work with them as a partner.
Yeah, just say no.
Just say no, yeah.
And Courtney, you're often the middle person between the brand and the influencer. When you look at the community of customers behind a specific brand, how do you find the influencer that's really going to best represent that brand and community?
There are many factors to consider when selecting influencers for a brand. First and foremost, what are the goals of the brand? What is the brand trying to achieve with this specific campaign? And then who is the brand's target audience? What you can do now with many tools is you can actually scan the influencer's audience to generally see what the demographic breakdown is of their audience. So you can see, is it mostly male or female on Instagram, what age groups typically, what locations, and then from there we can decide, okay, does this person fit that criteria? And that's just really the first step. Then the second step really is, does this influencer fit the aesthetic and the values of the brand? And I would say if it passes those two tests, then we'll move forward and we'll say to our clients, these are the influencers that make sense for you based on what your goals are, based on who you're trying to reach. And then from there, we'll go out and we'll reach out to the influencers.
And this is a question for everyone. With each of your respective brands, how have you found that social media and influencer marketing has really helped with brand awareness and then ultimately driving sales?
Well, at Martha Stewart Living, we actually invite influencers to our offices, and mostly during times where we're maybe doing a Facebook Live. Mm-hmm. Facebook Live, I was one of the testers of Facebook Live from the beginning, and I find that a really interesting and useful and also productive way to do an entire half-hour television show with about a tiny fraction of the cost of a real television show, and garnering an audience anywhere from 100,000 to 400 or 500,000 in a half an hour. So advertisers love that. We invite the influencers to come in and see what we're doing. They'll learn about Facebook Live. They will also then go off and talk about whatever we're promoting in terms of an advertiser, but also what we're doing. And so we'll do a project, a craft project, we'll do a decorating project, we'll do a cooking project, and it is a very effective method of getting across to a very broad audience instantaneously. And Facebook Live, of course, you can watch it next week too if you want to. They're archived and you can watch whatever we do. So I like that. I like it a lot. And I wish it had happened way before I started my daily television show, because a daily television show takes so much time and so much effort and is so expensive to create. And the value is really, I think, ultimately no better than a Facebook Live. Ultimately.
Yes. We are big fans of Facebook Live and now Instagram Live.
Well,
have you used
see,
Instagram?
the Instagram Live, I mean, it's just incredible how many people right away catch on to a video that you do on Instagram Live. My little granddaughter, Jude, was giving a dance lesson, a ballet lesson on the beach to her 2 nannies, and in Spanish, and I posted that. My daughter wasn't happy about that, but I posted it anyway, and it instantly 50,000 or 60,000 views. She was very proud. Jude was extremely proud, and the comments were all very pleasant. I try not to read the comments from most of my posts. Do you read your comments?
I read my comments. Yeah.
You do?
I do.
I guess influencers have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is important to continually give back and to
Do you
have the
delete
conversation.
bad comments?
I have deleted probably 2 comments. The 2 comments were, there was a guy who was like saying some really negative stuff, and then my mom got on there and started talking back to him. I deleted both. Yeah.
Just to add to that, that's also something that we look at when we're selecting influencers is engagement rates. So a lot of the influencers that we work with do engage with their audience. They are typically doing a lot of Q&As, hosting them on Instagram Live or Facebook Live, and building that community within Instagram.
Martha, do you ever reply to comments when people have questions? About
Never.
what
Oh, no,
never?
no.
Okay.
You learn that right away. You do not reply.
It's positive.
You do not engage. No, I posted one picture on Instagram of the most delicious onion soup that I had ever made, and there were some speckles of onion soup, and then I put it under the broiler in the salamander to get the cheese melted, and it kind of made marks on the rim of the plate. I was lambasted so hideously for a nasty picture. Oh, Martha doesn't know how to take food pictures after all these years. And, it wasn't that bad a picture. It was a dark brown, beautiful onion soup. I should have done it in a crock. I realized that afterward. I should have done it the traditional way, because you don't do it in a flat plate. Like, so it took me it's probably taken me like 3 years to get back credibility as a photographer, and I'm a really good photographer.
Do you use portrait mode on the iPhone?
I use all modes.
I was talking about the kind of like value, the sort of like return investment sort of on Instagram posts. It's interesting. Like I'm not the person who, well, one, you're not going to be following me for your next fabulous jumpsuit. But also, it's interesting. Like having a strong male audience. I actually have a bit of a larger female audience than I do a male audience, which is interesting. But people aren't necessarily I definitely have a lot of like fashion inspiration, but I think my audience tends to be not necessarily there to like shop from what I'm looking at, but definitely the awareness of the brands that I'm talking about is always interesting. But then when it comes to sort of like where I can see a more direct translation to what I'm doing, you mentioned I'm the co-founder of Spring Street Social Society. So this is a social community. We have once a month gatherings of our members in New York City in kind of off the beaten path locations. There's fine dining, performance art, all sorts of things. A very experiential moment. But sometimes we take Spring Street Social Society on the road. Spring Street Social Society has a very vibrant social media feed of its own, as does my other company, The Liquor Cabinet. So I'm very happy, and I have somebody on my team who's managing those, and she does a fabulous job. But when we took Spring Street Social Society on the road to San Francisco, we were doing a partnership with Veuve Clicquot. We were hosting a dining experience for them in this old abandoned Mint building in San Francisco, and we were responsible for the guest list. And through our social media, through Spring Street Social Society, through our social media there, and through our email audience, we sold a good number of seats. But when I landed in San Francisco, I also posted about it on my own social media, on my Instagram feed, and immediately we just sold out the rest of the event. That's something that my audience particularly is attuned to and is very interested in. So it's also kind of just interesting to know what it is that the audience is there for, what types of things they will react to immediately, and what are the types of things that they're sort of in tune with, but maybe just sort of like gaining awareness.
They wanted the Veuve Clicquot.
They wanted the Veuve Clicquot. They wanted all the champagne.
And Veuve Clicquot was happy.
And they were very happy.
And Martha and Patrick, both of your brands are centered around experiences. Dinner parties, dining, hosting gatherings. How do you balance the experience and intimacy of these events with your activity on social media? And is there a line that you will not cross?
I think I've crossed every line. And my life is a total open book, I think, and it's and in a way that's just added to the authenticity of the brand. People realize that it is an authentic brand, that I really do clean out the chicken coop, so I must know about chickens. I really do saddle the horses, so I must know how to handle a horse. So all of that adds to, as I said, to authenticity, and it's very important to be as authentic as you possibly can. If you're going to be a teacher, which I consider myself, you have to be able to do the things. And you have to also continue to learn to be the teacher that you want to be. So all of that, I think, comes across very strongly.
I don't necessarily, I don't know if there's lines that I'm not willing to cross. But the thing that's important to me is really finding that balance between, my life is lived on social media. That's now my job, it's my career, it's also something that I enjoy. But equally, I enjoy the times that I'm spending with friends. I was just in Vietnam, and I just talked about that. That kind of finding that balance between when am I going to be online documenting what I'm doing, and when am I going to just be doing it and enjoying myself. That's something that I constantly am kind of like finding the balance for, because ultimately, you know, I host the gatherings with Spring Street Social Society, and I don't actually really have time to be documenting them. So a lot of times it's just, for me, it's finding the moment when I can document something in a way that I feel like I'm fully conveying the experience that I'm having, and taking the moment to document. You know, maybe it's before the dinner party has started and the table looks beautiful, and it's still light out, and I can get a great photo, and then I can put the phone away and just enjoy the time that I'm having with my friends, or you know, with the rest of the guests, or maybe vice versa. Maybe there's one moment during the evening when the candles are lit and everybody's enjoying themselves and in conversation, and that moment sort of crystallizes in my mind, and I need to document it. So it's really about finding the key moments that I want to document, and then making sure that I'm really present for the rest of the time. Because it's honestly, like, what's the value of all of this if we aren't just having a really fulfilled life and enjoying ourselves, you know? But ultimately, you know, I guess there's not a line I won't cross. I'm going to post that photo of me dancing on the bar in Hanoi.
All right.
Right away.
Right now.
Well, it's good you said you set time limits for yourself. 5 minutes on Instagram or 10 minutes on Twitter, and then you can detach and be in the moment. Courtney, a question for you. Last year, micro-influencers have completely taken off in the social media space, largely because of their highly engaged audiences and communities. When working with a brand, how do you balance the use of micro-influencers and macro-influencers? And do you find there specific benefits to using one type of influencer over the other?
So it all comes back to goals and a brand's budget. Typically, we are recommending micro-influencers when a brand needs to create content. So we're using micro-influencers as content creators because a lot of times it's a very cost-effective way to generate Instagrammable content for your brand. And then when you compare the cost of producing content with micro-influencers versus doing your own production, typically it's more cost-effective to work with the micro-influencers, plus you get their audience. You get to reach their audience, and a lot of these micro-influencers are growing quickly, so you get to build that relationship with them early. And then with the macro influencers, I love working with larger influencers because they can have such an immediate impact on the brand. They have this engaged audience. A lot of times when we're selecting macro influencers for the brands that we're working with, we're asking them questions like, who have you worked with? What results did you get them? And we are making decisions on who to partner with based on the results that they have gotten other brands. So that's what I love working about macro influencers. It's a big impact in a short amount of time.
Do you find something that I've always been interested in with the variations between an audience size maybe? I've always been interested in sort of how the audience is connected to a particular a vertical maybe. Like I know that a lot of, you could have a micro-influencer who like really is just about cars or is just about like a certain sport, let's say, and maybe their following is, 10,000 or something like that, but it's definitely a super engaged audience for that particular, theme or vertical. I've always been interested in how that plays out. When you're working with micro-influencers, is it tend to be people who are specific in terms of their vertical, or is it just people who have a really strong and engaged audience and maybe just happen to have a smaller?
It's really both, and it depends on the brand that we're working with. So typically we're working with a lot of fashion brands, hospitality brands, and in those cases, the influencers we can work with are broad. But when we are working with more of a brand who, let's say a car brand, we would want to work with small influencers who are car enthusiasts because that's the audience that we're trying to reach. Generally, though, if we're working with micro-influencers to create content, really the main factor is what is their aesthetic on the feed? Are they going to create the right content that we can then repurpose on the page or use for advertising?
It's so true that there are so many people. I mean, more than ever, obviously, Instagram is just sort of saturated with people using it. But it's so amazing to look at these accounts that are just sort of popping up, and people are really good. Like, you have people who just sort of like take it on, and like they've seen what others have used the platform for, and maybe they don't have a strong following because they're just starting out, but their images are just so incredible. So
yes,
that's awesome.
There are so many amazing micro-influencers out there that are growing really quickly. And then another strategy too is just sending product to many, many influencers, not contracting them, hoping that they'll post about the brand, hoping that they'll like it. And in that case, the goal there is just brand awareness and just getting the word out.
And that was a good segue to our next slide here about Marley Spoon and working with influencers. Patrick, I know you have posted about Marley Spoon before. Martha, do you want to tell everyone what Marley Spoon is?
Oh, well, Marley Spoon is a delivery service for meals to prepare. And I think I tried every single food box out there when we discovered Marley Spoon, and that was in 2016. We have partnered with them. That we have a huge library of fantastic recipes at Martha Stewart, many thousands of recipes, and Marley Spoon is using our recipes, using one of our kitchens to develop their meal kits. And the meal kits are an extraordinarily sensible way to eat these days. For many different reasons. Grocery stores throw away almost 55% of the food that they put out on the shelves, the fresh food. It is such a terrible waste. This eliminates all waste because a company like Marley Spoon knows exactly from last week's orders how many chickens and heads of lettuce and any other kind of produce they have to have for packing their boxes. So there's no waste. It's almost zero waste in packing these boxes. You get a perfect box with every single ingredient, and you learn how to cook. You might be an experienced cook, but you might be a beginner, and we give you beautiful recipe cards. And all the meal kits are kind of the same, but they taste different. And we just really love this. And we're doing now party kits too. We also do full meals for entertaining, like the Thanksgiving dinner. We're doing the barbecue, we're doing the Mexican fiesta, which I am giving to you for your next dinner party, which I want to be invited to.
Absolutely.
Oh, here comes the box, right here.
You're invited, and I'll provide the margaritas. Thank you.
And we can get one of the great tequila companies too to give all the tequila.
Do you have a favorite tequila?
Oh, many different kinds.
All of them.
So it's a very sensible way to develop an lifelong interest in food. So if you haven't tried meal kits, you should. It's great for working people. It's something that you're going to get home and you're going to have something good to eat.
Yes.
And it's healthy too, on top of all the convenience.
And we have a special coupon code for everyone in the audience. SMW Social Media Week 35 for $35 off your first box. So thank you, Martha, for that for everyone here.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And you were really the perfect influencer to partner with Marley Spoon, because who better to talk about sensible cooking and dining than yourself?
And we've taken we've been able to, through social media, interest Amazon, which now carries our Marley Spoon, interest QVC, which is selling Marley Spoon on QVC, one of the greatest ways to sell things to a huge audience, and also using our social media, we have a hashtag I'm So Martha, which has brought in all you're calling your micro influencers, your macro influencers. Those people, when they hashtag, we get their audience, we get our audience to go to their audience. I mean, it's a awfully good two-way street. So, but the I'm So Martha, you get funny, fabulous things happening with that kind of cooperation, I call it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So my final question for each of you: where do you see the future of influencer marketing heading? Who wants to start?
I mean, I can take a stab at it. You know, the thing that I love about social media is that it really is in the hands of each individual user to kind of blaze their own trail and to figure it out. I mean, you know, we're talking about hashtags. There was like a user on Twitter that invented the hashtag. It wasn't Twitter itself, you know? As people started using Instagram and gaining a following, suddenly brands realized that there was an audience there, and what would it look like if we, you know, work with this person? There's just like no precedent for like any of the things that we're doing. So, you know, I really don't know, but I think that it's really exciting for each of us continue, all of these people that we're talking about, micro influencers, like next year, they're gonna be like, you know, doing jobs that I otherwise would have been doing, and I'm out of a job, you know? But I think it's really great that ultimately it's each person, you know, in the car on their phone who's like discovering things and then creating a world for themselves. Ultimately, I guess I don't know, but I think it's really exciting that things are constantly changing, and that there's just so many opportunities for us to continue to find ways to make marketing a more interesting and engaging thing. And ultimately, you know, we're building stronger, more personal, more intimate relationships all the time, and it's super cool. So. I don't know. You maybe know because you're like in the world.
My crystal ball says, just based on what I saw happening in the last year, influencer marketing has just continued to grow tremendously. We're seeing a lot of ad dollars shift towards influencer marketing. All of our clients are investing in influencer marketing. I would say influencer marketing is really no longer the thing that you might want to do. It's something that you have to do to be successful with your social media campaign. And then something that I'm seeing more and more of, and this isn't a new thing, but I'm just seeing more and more of it. I'm seeing more influencers in commercials. I'm seeing more influencers become the extensions of a lot of brand campaigns. And I think my prediction is that I'm going to see more and more of that, because influencer marketing is very, very multifaceted. You are a living, breathing person at the end of the day. You have this incredible audience at your disposal. You're a tastemaker. And as a result, the opportunities are endless, and you can be used by brands or you can partner with brands to do a lot of different things.
Well, I think that that kind of aspect of like, what are the different ways in which that partnership and the marketing can sort of take form. For me, I work with a lot of brands who, maybe not a majority of the brands, but a good number of brands I work with may be interested in partnering with Spring Street Social Society. So the tequila brand might be providing the cocktails at a dining event. And I've done some video with some brands that's posted on my channels. It's maybe posted on Facebook and on other social media channels, the different ways in which the content is pushed out there, both, I think, on social media, in traditional media, and in real life, you know, I think is the kind of like more, the way that you can create that campaign in a more kind of global way with using all of the assets that an influencer might be able to offer. I definitely agree with that.
And also, as influencer marketing becomes much more saturated, it's very, very important to build authentic partnerships with influencers. And I'm seeing a lot of influencers, like you said earlier, decline deals because it's just not a fit for them. And I think that's going to be really, really important to making sure that influencer marketing continues to have the impact that it's having. So influencers need to remain true to their brand.
And I think that influencers are people are finding that they do have a voice, that they can make a difference. They can have a confidence that what they're thinking gets across to an audience. And I like that. I like that part of the influencer market. I think that, again, the authenticity is extremely important. And I think that they have to figure out what they are going to be focusing on. focus is very important. You can be all over the place, but I think if you focus on specific areas of, if you have an expertise in something, in plantsmanship, for example, you can focus on that and rather than being all over the place. I think there's still a huge future in social media, and the next big thing is around the corner. YouTube, I think, is now the most popular use of most popular social media, and it's those videos. Yes. And they're building huge studios. Google is just building on Pier 57. The whole first floor of Pier 57 is going to be TV studios for YouTubers. So it's another way to utilize your expertise and your cleverness to reach an even bigger audience than we've reached before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for
Thank
this
you.
wonderful discussion on influencer marketing.
Thank you.